Afade, I'm Ryan and welcome to Data Points. I'm the president of Pinpoint Guam, and today we're here to speak with Bobby Shringi. And Bobby has been with Representative Moylan's office in a prior capacity, but he's also been in the insurance industry and he's been inside the Republican Party for a long time. And one of the reasons I asked Bobby to come on is because he has some insight from being in the structure, but he's not obligated to any party or campaign right now. So he can speak freely without an agenda. And I thought that would be a good conversation to have, because at the root of it, right, we need to understand what it is that we're doing that continues to perpetuate the issues. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get to the root of. Thanks for joining us on Data Points. We appreciate all of you who like, share, subscribe, or comment on any of our content. And we appreciate all your voices and all the questions that you bring to the table. And we appreciate your support. All right. Bobby, welcome to the podcast. I'm really appreciative to have you. One of the reasons why I was asking to have you on, this evolved over a series of conversations in various settings, right? But really, it's me coming to you with questions about why the structure exists around what we're doing now. And through all the conversations I've been having with everybody, there's still some mixed information in terms of like certain things, like what is the effect of the Jones Act? How are tariffs affecting us and being interpreted moving forward? What types of federal funding are we missing out on that we should be? What should the plan be? What should the structure be? And you have a unique position because, you've been inside the party apparatus, right? You work for a large local corporation that has varied assets, right? And you've been an insider in Washington as well, right? So I would think that you have insight in terms of how we got here and what are the things that are obstacles that we need to address to make real meaningful change here.
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for the invitation. I know we've been having these conversations here and there, and
right.
Figured, in fact, the first time you brought it up was at the Guam Chamber of Commerce luncheon, and it was a housing issue that at that particular juncture that we were discussing. And I'll bring that subject matter up as well.
Okay.
I think it had to do with military housing.
Right.
But nonetheless, but thanks for this. There's a lot of things we could talk about. When it comes to the federal issues, I did spend the last 2+ years dealing with Guam's issues in the nation's capital. Understood and learned and eventually evolved into understanding the structure of Congress and how it works and how we could move things along. I won't lie, any individual who is running for that seat or wins that seat, it's not going to be able to deliver many tangible wins in a term for not. And I'm going to be very clear. It's not just a Guam problem. It is a entire district. It's every district's issues, right? There are 435 members of Congress. There are only so much. There's only so much you can do in terms of taking one or two of your key issues. But what I've learned is that doesn't take away your ability to seek out funding sources for key projects, for key programs. A lot of what we do get is already in a staple form. For example, when Congress passes a budget bill and they provide funding for, say, SNAP or WIC or anything, Guam's going to get its percentage share.
Okay.
If the funding is cut at this level, everyone feels that cut. It's not like, well, your territory, we're going to throw you off, or you're a non-voting member of Congress, we're going to discount you. No, it doesn't work that way. Everybody will feel that cut. There are programs that are, one of the first things I remember getting into D.C. Was looking at various programs, and not just the basic stuff that we see, coming up with sort of a matrix on the different types of programs and seeing what the definitions were, right? And looking at the definitions and saying, when you define a state, does it include the territory? Surprisingly, we found some programs where Guam was included, but these are archaic programs that we were wondering, okay, if Guam was included, why are we not getting anything? And that's when you start making these administrative phone calls sending out the emails and looking for the liaisons and saying, hey, listen, let's talk. What's going on here? Then you would find those where Guam wasn't included. Surprisingly, when we did a little matrix, this was like, I think, March of 2023, we actually noticed that when it comes to the level of what the territories get, surprisingly, Guam and Virgin Islands are literally up there. And sadly, the CNMI and Puerto Rico are on the bottom half of the list.
Can I stop you there?
Sure.
What is the consistency of the legacy information being passed from one representative to the next, right?
In terms of...
Well, you would think this knowledge, right? This gap, right? Like, how do you get to the place where you understand where these gaps are, where you're being included, or where there's a foothold where you should be included, but you're not being? How do you determine that? And like, historically, are there things is there information that is being passed from representatives, or it's like carry the torch?
Sure. To a certain degree, obviously, relationships are important. We did a lot of what, and I personally want to thank Congressman Kilili Sablan, the former member of Congress from the CNMI, who sort of from day one took us in. In fact, his chief became one of my mentors, Bob Schwalbach. And between the congressman and Bob, they were always reminding us, hey, by the way, just to let you know, Guam is not included in that, or
right.
Hey, this is going on and this is what's going on. Then you also have, it's not just funding issues, it's also regulatory issues, right? Mm-hmm. You get some of these archaic laws that you wonder, there's something called the Defense Base Act as a good example. This is an archaic law that still considers Guam a possession,
right.
Not just a territory, a possession. 1930s laws, which was in an era, and it's surprisingly, it's sort of a workers' comp type of program. Mm-hmm. So it adds costs to contractors, because what happens is, on top of typical workman's comp, which is required by local law and federal law, you got to also buy into this right here. And these little things, you start wondering why. Mm-hmm. You would think it's a simple little, hey, can we start, we've had exemptions over the years. I mean, previous members, I know Congresswoman Berdalia was able to get some exemptions in the past, but you just have to permanently remove it off the books, right? And just getting that little challenge, it seems easy, but it's one of those challenges where you have to kind of go through the process. But once again, going back to your question on how there really is no one solution to it. Mm-hmm.
Well, how did you do it?
Honestly, you just have to get what the first thing we did was you get interns, and you have interns start looking up these programs and start creating these little this matrix, right? And kid you not, when you start looking at interns in DC, you're getting some very bright kids,
right? But it's research and experiential.
It's research. Right. It's looking into definitions. Mm-hmm. It's looking into types of programs. You're not going to get everything. Talking to Congressman Sablan's office, talking to Congresswoman Radowagen's office. We had a great relationship with the former member from Puerto Rico, and they would also kind of
and speak to that, right? Like, wouldn't there be like a serious contingent of alliances between like us, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, like all the territories, mm-hmm. Samoa, American Samoa, right? It's just like
yes and no. I mean, everyone is there for their district. Right. We had a great working relationship with all those offices. Virgin Islands sort of was a little bit on the distance for some odd reason. Mm-hmm. Possibly it's the members' prerogative or be the staffing pattern. But normally on most cases, Guam, CNMI, and American Samoa we're always bonded together.
Right.
Puerto Rico would come along on different issues. Puerto Rico it's one of those things where, and I want to bring you up one big case here. Let's talk about SSI, for example, right? One of the challenges that Guam will face does face.
Can you explain SSI?
SSI, Supplemental Security Income.
Okay.
Basically a program that is provided to individuals with disabilities, elders. Basically, it's sort of a little income that you get. The federal government subsidizes it. The amounts can be anywhere from $800 to $1,500, depending on.
So that's that well-publicized case with twins, right?
That is the well-publicized case of the twins. Right. And the story with the twins was that you had twin sisters who had some serious medical issues that they were born with. Both parents sadly passed away. Different relatives ended up with guardianship of the sisters. One sister ended up moving to one of the states where SSI benefits continued for her. I'm going to say it's the Sharf sisters, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Layla was one. I forgot the second one's name. The second sister was brought by her, I believe, aunt to Guam. And the case was just that. It was, why is it that two sisters, same medical condition, one ends up on Guam, and it's not a territorial issue because surprisingly the CNMI is included in the
Right.
SSI.
They get that, right?
They get that.
Yeah.
The Guam, American Samoa, Guam, American Samoa, the Virgin Islands, along with Puerto Rico, don't. And then one stays here. And it was a big lawsuit, and ultimately a court decision that stated Congress creates the laws, Congress can amend the laws. So it sounds easy. Sounds really easy. Here's your problem. The numbers. The problem you have now is you have Guam CNMI and the Virgin Islands combined is a really minor little dot on the cost factor. You know, I used to say in Washington, it felt like we were playing with monopoly money, right? That's the dollars that were being pulled. But now you have the situation where you can't just go in and say, hey, Congress, hey, Mr. Speaker, hey, Mr. Majority Leader, this isn't going to cost much. What are you talking about here? Here's your 800-pound gorilla sitting across the room, Puerto Rico. Because Puerto Rico's numbers now are going to be astronomical.
Right.
So when you're going in and saying, this is a battle, this is an issue, it's either all or none. So something like that becomes a challenge. And don't get me wrong, CNMI's rep was with us at all times, but getting the whole package together. Now, I was actually working on something back in January. It was one of those timing issues. We had a great working relationship with the former member of from Puerto Rico. She ran for governor, Jennifer Gonzalez Colon. She ran for governor and was successful. Her chief and I became really good buddies. In fact, she was also somebody I utilized. She was on the Hill for a number of years, and I utilized her for advice, right?
Okay.
At times, Gabby. And so back in January, I remember you get this trump card opportunity. I don't mean trump card
Literally, like, are we punning or?
It's that moment where you can go to the majority leader and say, hey, listen, I need a favor here, right? And it has to be reasonable. So his political director was a good buddy of mine, Jake, and I said, hey, Jake, I want to cash in my my trump card early. And he goes, what is it? I go, SSI. He goes, yeah, but we had this conversation. I go, but what happens if I get to talk to the governor of Puerto Rico through my and say, hey, listen, your predecessor in Congress swears in January 3, right, 2025. The next day announces that I will be running for governor in 4 years. So he's on the opposite party. He's going to go challenge your governor. But hey, I got a great idea. You know, what happens if she agrees to let Guam and the other two sort of slip into this law? Who looks bad? Her predecessor looks bad.
Right.
Like, hey, how does Guam and the Virgin Islands, and the other ones, American Samoa, get their SSI, but
not us?
Guam's, yeah.
Right.
And so the idea was great, but obviously I left in end of February, and that issue just disappeared.
So we missed it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying it was a guarantee, but the plan was in motion.
Right.
And it was just follow through, right? So those are types of things where you have to kind of sometimes think outside the box.
Right. You got to put the deal together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Kind of like, and you have to think about what they need and how I can deliver that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
No, I understand.
But, going back to the issues that people always say, well, because you're not a voting member of Congress, you're not going to get much. Well, here's the reality also. And I, going into Congress in January of 2023, I had the same mindset, why can't we vote? And then you sit there and you talk to the longtime territorial members. You talk to Congresswoman Radewagen or Kilili Sablan or even former Congresswoman Manu Bertalio, and they're all going to tell you the same thing. And by the way, same with Jennifer Gonzalez Colon. They weren't interested in voting rights because voting rights meant a lot of other responsibilities as a member. You have to raise a certain amount of dollars for your party, regardless whether you're on the Republican side of the aisle and there's the NRCC, and then on the other side there's the National Democratic candidate committee NDCC, and you're supposed to you're required to do that. There's certain levels.
So you don't want that smoke kind of deal, right?
Well, when you start looking at that aspect, you start saying, okay, these are the responsibilities, but where do I vote? Well, you can vote in committee, and that matters.
Sure.
And committee is really where everything is.
And we have that power.
We do have that
Right.
power. Yeah, and we can vote on amendments on the floor, except in a situation where it's a tie.
Right.
Yeah. Well, no. If there's
Or
a
you're
tie,
not deciding vote. Right.
yeah. If you're and actually surprisingly, that rule has been in the books for many, many years.
Yeah.
There was actually one amendment in 2023 where it was exercised because Jim was that deciding vote.
Okay.
And they had to it was a 1 vote win for whatever that amendment was, right? I forgot what it was. But anyways, it was one of those things where
Congressman Moylan
had that 1 vote. And it was a rule that was in the books for years, and it was finally being utilized. And then they had to revote, and the territories were excluded. And I believe the amendment failed, which was kind of funny because I remember calling my buddy Jake at the Majority Leader's office. It was a Republican amendment. I forgot, a Republican or 2 voted with the Democrats, and that's where the vote was off, right? But anyways, I remember calling him and saying, "See, this is the reason why territory should vote," and they laughed about it, and that was what it was, right?
But you score the point, right?
You scored a point, yeah, and going back to the other requirements, they have session weeks, right? And every Monday of session week, you're going to get this little card that comes from the majority whip's office telling you, and the Democrats get the same, the minority whip's office, telling you what measures are being entertained on the floor. And then every day of that week, depending. So session week typically means, when you say session week, it's not the session. It's Congress is in there's activity going on in all the buildings, committee meetings, oversight hearings, floor activity, you name it. Tons of people roaming the hallways from families on vacation to lobbyists to, special interest groups, you name it, right? You got lobbying groups that have these checklists that they have to visit X number of offices. It doesn't matter whether it's Guam or Timbuktu. They're gonna knock your door. And so, but the day of when you have session activity, you get these little cards, and in that card it's going to say, these are the recommendations from the whip. So going back to that question on the voting rights, does that voting right give you that authority, that additional power? But technically, yes and no, because you do have the ability to vote in committee. You do have the ability to vote on amendments, but you're also told how to vote on the final vote.
Right. So, you're saying there's a lot of responsibility that comes with having a vote that you can evade by just being on the periphery and still kind of move in and out and get what you want to a degree, right? You just have to know how to move the machine.
You do. And then you have to look at the major legislative vehicles. That's really where the money's at.
Yeah.
You have to look at the 12 appropriation bills. You have to look at the NDAA.
You have to know what's going on.
You have to know what's going on.
Right.
You're going to have good advisors, good staffers that take you there.
So stop.
Sure.
Good advisors, right? So at times we've hired lobbyists, right? Virginia Cruz, right, was experienced in that field and that she ran, right? And then various parties, I've supported various people for representative over the years. Probably everyone who's ever run, I probably voted for in some capacity in a primary or election, right? Including the sit-in representative, right? But what do you think did the best job? Now knowing what you know, right? Who do you think was the most effective during the time and leveraging that we can learn from moving forward? If you were to give advice to someone who's running now, what roadmap would you give them to be effective there now?
I mean, I'll give you a very biased answer. I think last term we were very successful.
Okay.
In terms of coming in as a freshman office and building relationships.
Sure.
It is a networking. It's a networking environment.
Right.
It's relationships. It's about, and it's not the mindset of just member to member, because the moves are really made internally. You can be drinking buddies with a member of Congress, and we had those buddies too. But it's the phone call is going to be made
right
to whoever they're right-hand person was.
Did you leave before the UFO briefings, Bobby?
No. I don't know. That started after I left. But ironically, so we moved offices in December.
Yeah.
We moved to Canton. Our next door neighbor actually was the one who was the subcommittee chair.
Really?
Yeah. She actually had the subcommittee chair, Anna Luna.
Okay.
She had the subcommittee chair she was the subcommittee chairwoman for that, as well as the JFK files.
Okay.
So the JFK, MLK.
So how did you not get briefed on JFK? Can you tell me?
She didn't get the committee chairwomanship until March or something, and I was already gone.
Are you a member of the Skull and Bones?
No. Yeah, but that would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the one I was looking forward to was the Epstein list, right? That's the list, right? He was on the Epstein list there. So, hey, do I know anyone here?
You left too soon.
Yeah. So I mean, seeing all of these things. Unfortunately, I think even that was redacted. So I don't think everybody got the full list. But the UFO. Yeah, the UFO one was our next door neighbor, and I remember back in February or something, she was actually having an issue with staffers too. She was some turnover. So the guy that was leading her office last term, I remember him leaving, and I was talking to him briefly before he left. It was the same thing. The same question was, what do you guys have? What do you guys know? But they didn't know anything at that point because it was very rumored.
Sure.
But it wasn't. She was positioning herself, so it was a given. Yeah.
We can start working on tourism, right?
Yeah. And we get some extra tourists here.
Third leg is back, incentivized you.
Exactly, right?
But so I want to back it up too, right?
Sure.
Like self-determination,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, because that's what people say, right? We got to determine our political status, right? Can you explain that issue fundamentally?
I can, and I'm going to go back to the Puerto Rico conversation.
Okay.
This is why Puerto Rico was not very big about voting rights at that point, or at least the former member wasn't, was because Puerto Rico was probably the closest to seeing, in terms of the territories, in terms of seeing some sort of a path. They're more
Path
towards
statehood.
Towards statehood.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of some sort of a what is the path towards their government? What are they looking at? Statehood was technically where they were vying for, but it wasn't going to happen overnight. From my understanding, the 117th Congress, which was the previous one before we came on board, they were very close to it. They were very close to
Puerto Rican
statehood, and that was. And it was, when I say it was very close, it was a process. It wasn't going to happen like, oh, let's pass this bill in 2023 or Puerto Rico will be the 51st state. No, it was like a 10-year path towards a number of things. There's a process. I've always said that it starts here, right? It starts here with the local government. You can't, a member can lobby and advocate for a path. But the first thing Congress will say is, okay, you want to improve your political status. Great news. What do the people want? It starts with a plebiscite. It starts with actual...
Define that.
Yeah.
What's a plebiscite?
It basically is a binding vote. It's going to be, and it has to be a binded vote where, and that's another issue, right?
There's a concern about the plebiscite.
Well,
about
the big issue is the who. Exactly.
Self-determination.
Yeah, I've always felt that you live here, you have that ability to vote. This is your home. This is where you live. This is where your kids go to, were raised, go to school.
Right.
This is where you contribute, right? Allow some sort of a vote. But before you can allow the vote, there has to be a really aggressive approach. I know the pro-independence group has done a great job over the years pushing their message.
This is Neil Weir?
No, is it different?
It's the pro-independence group. Can we identify these?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
But you hear them, they have their little briefings, but you're not hearing anything from the statehood folks or the free association folks. You need a strong marketing campaign on all three issues. It starts with that. And then, of course, you have to go into what do the people of Guam want. I've wondered why that's not happening. Right? It's something that I would love to see happen.
It's been discussed consistently.
It's been discussed consistently since I was in high school.
It's a circular argument. Right?
Exactly.
It's like effectively, well, why don't we do this, and it goes back to, well, we never did this.
Exactly.
Right? Well, we never did this because we're scared to let everybody vote.
I think that's the fear. Right. I think that's the fear that if you have here's the first thing. This is the first thing I think the fear is. At this point in time, if you ran something, you ran a plebiscite, you ran you had a ballot in the 2026 election, for example, most people are going to be looking for that box or that oval that says status quo.
Okay.
But status quo is not.
I don't want to change it.
Exactly. But that's where it's heading at this point.
But fundamentally, you're saying that you have to do that. Just rip the band-aid off. No matter what, it's coming one way or the other. Whether you decide or not, change is coming.
Yeah, and change can be good, right? And so my concern is that's what we're going to be seeing. Status quo is not an option, but status quo will be the preferred option because the fear of what is independence going to be like? What is free association going to be like? What is statehood? Sounds great. Most people would probably say, hey, statehood. But let's be honest here, is statehood has its price as well.
Right, but whose opportunity and agenda is it to push these options, right? Because it's super complicated, Bobby, right? Yeah, I don't understand what it means to
Correct.
And not even can we even have that dream and is it a dream that we even want, right? Like all those considerations and why and what and can we stand on our own, right? But it's all fear in a lot of ways, right? That's why people would check the box status quo, right? Because
There's a lot of fear.
Yeah, it's good.
I mean, when you start looking at, for example, you go back to the global pandemic, which wasn't too long ago, and the millions and millions of dollars that came in from the federal government. There's people were living off that. People were surviving off that. They were paying their bills with that, raising their kids with that. There was a period of uncertainty. But you suddenly say the word independence, and you ask yourself, would that have happened?
Right.
How would we have sustained ourselves? Right. And those are that's the education that needs to take place.
Right. And then sometimes with growth, right, you have to take that step. You have to take that leap of faith and say, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Right. We have to understand our value, what we bring to the table and where we are in the structure of everything. Right. And that's an informed decision. And really, I'm still not with it.
Sure.
I want to get deeper into this plebiscite thing. Do you contextually, right? Can you put into context what that would mean for us? Like why we would decide to do something like that, right? And how that would manifest in change, like moving forward.
Sure. Well, I think the first thing, I'm going to put my DC hat on for a second. You walk in and you say, the people of Guam voted, and the preferred option was, let's say, statehood. First reaction was going to be, do we really want the 51st state? That's the first action. And suddenly, a Guam with population of 175,000 will get 2 sitting voting members in the Senate versus a state of California or say Texas with the millions, right? Where's the equity in that? Those are the factors that are going to come into place. They're going to say, okay, maybe we'll look into a plan. Maybe we'll do a combination. Maybe Guam's UNMI and say American Samoa could do something, something could be put on the table. But does the CNMI agree with it? I can tell you American Samoa's not going to agree with it because they love their status. They love the status quo of being American nationals. And they're fine with that. And you're not going to shift that with the other territories. Do they want a 51st state? Are they going to give us that opportunity? We don't know. More than likely, at this point in time, probably not. Will they allow Guam to suddenly seek independence? Well, we're too valuable in terms of our roles, our proximity, rather, in terms of the national defense. They'll fear that. There's a reason why there's a call for agreement. It's basically saying, hey, listen, 3 nations, you're kind of like in the heart of this landmass between Hawaii and Guam and Asia, and we kind of really don't want PRC to be roaming these areas. So hey, listen, we're gonna give you guys all these opportunities. You can even use our dollars,
right?
And we're going to allow you to
passports,
free travel, to have travel freely without visa free, get jobs legally and all that stuff. But we just want to make sure the waters are secured, and we're not going to give you territory status because we don't want you to be a territory, but we want to have full access. Oh, by the way, we're also going to spend millions and millions of dollars and we'll build some schools for you and hospitals. It's because it's just this disjuncture. they're not going to look at Guam and say, hey, listen, Guam's too valuable at this point.
Okay.
To the point where will Congress say, hey, listen, statehood is, independence is an option. So those are, to me, it starts here with education, with allowing people to vote, and then taking it there and saying, okay, let's start the process. It's a 10-year process. Let's start the process somewhere.
So what I'm hearing you saying, right, is we're not really free to determine anything realistically because we don't have the political will or the political might to manifest that in the larger setting, right? But in the meantime, if we at least say
Correct.
that we want to be free, that we want more, then inevitably it will come to us just through the exercise of saying it. It will manifest.
And it would
desire known.
Yeah, and it's not going to happen in this generation. It's going to happen maybe a decade from now, but you got to start somewhere.
Right, but the first step would be saying,
correct,
I want more.
Yeah, you remember when we were, I'm sure we're in the same age bracket here, when the Commonwealth discussions were taking place right around the time I think we were probably in high school.
Right.
And that was, I'm not going to say how old I am or how old you are, but I'm sure that was a few decades ago.
Mm-hmm.
That conversation came and went. And what has happened since? And so that's the whole thing. It has to start here. It has to start in some level. And I'm not saying that nobody's doing anything. It's because maybe there's no strong will. And by the way, I also want to add that in every, and I'm a data-driven person, right? And
you're a what person?
Data person, right? And I've seen political polls.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you start looking at what issues are critical for the people in Guam, for some odd reason, political status will probably be ranked in the bottom 2%.
Sure,
but it's just not a interest of most people because once again, it's that where's status quo in the oval? Where's that oval with the status quo?
Right, but if we root it in like change starts here with saying I want more,
mm-hmm.
is the question as simple as would you want to be free?
Correct.
Is that really what it is? What would the question
I think
on the plebiscite vote?
The question would really be in terms of political status, improving our political status.
Okay.
What option do you believe Guam should?
Sure. And right? What are the options that we present?
And I think it's 3 options. We have free association, we have statehood, and we have independence.
Right. And so no matter what option you pick, you think, like even admittedly myself, right? You have this perception where once you choose, immediately you detach from the apparatus.
Yeah.
Now you're afloat, right? Oh, you don't want me?
Yeah.
Get to step in, bro. It's like, remember like after BRAC and all this stuff,
Correct.
What it was like, right? See you later, right?
Yeah.
Just like, like someone scoring, right? Whatever. But with that, right, you're saying that's not the case, right? And it's just really like and so in that, should we really care who says what?
I think we should care.
Okay.
I think that it's...
No, but in terms of like, it's really a race issue, right? Isn't it? That's really at the bottom line. We haven't voted. We're scared to give non-Chamorros the vote.
I would presume that that's one of the hesitations.
Sure.
Going into it, with the fear that the uncertainty of what that vote will look like.
Right.
And
the outcome. We don't know what the outcome.
Correct.
We don't know what the prevailing was. Right. It's not party based, and it's really like, who can I register? Because who votes anyway?
And that's the question.
That's a crazy wild card too. How can you for something that's in the bottom percentage of what people care about?
Right.
They don't even things that affect their everyday lives.
Sure.
Right. Like who's going to be in the legislature? Who's going to be governor? What's the voting turnout now?
It's been pretty low.
What's the registered? Registered voters?
About 60,000 voters.
Right, and then of that,
I think the last
150,000 less. I'm
going to go back to the 2022 gubernatorial election was
gubernatorial election.
Yeah, was in the 40%,
right?
45%,
right? And so now for this plebiscite,
it's going to be a lot lower.
So what is the benchmark for a plebiscite, right? Like in terms of like, do you have to get a certain percentage of like the population registered? How does that even work?
And once again, I presume that if you're a registered voter, you would be able to vote. I presume that's the
right. Okay, I want to get more into like the Jones Act and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
That's like the meat of it, right? It's a little uncomfortable because it's like permissioning and, that mindset where, we're under the thumb of somebody, right?
Yeah.
And
I think, for the most part, and once again, this is just me speaking, if you ran a poll today, and you said, okay, and you put out status quo as an option, most people are comfortable with it.
Sure.
They don't necessarily see it as a control, because if you pick any of the 50 states, Hawaii inclusive, they will feel the same thing. So there are small fractions that would say, hey, listen, maybe we should be separate. It's a mindset, but we need to see more of an education for people to feel comfortable in picking one of those.
Well, I think what people have to understand is why status quo can't be the option.
Correct.
And so the conversations that we've consistently have had here, and it's actually like Randy Salas, right? One of the things they said, God, I don't want to quote him, but the concept of what he was trying to get across is that you can't manifest something through the system if the system is in effect causing the problem.
Correct.
Right. So you can't break patterns without breaking the system effectively. And so that makes a lot of sense to me. And so that's where all the structural things, you have to go back to the root and say, I want to break the system because it sucks.
Sure.
And I think there are a lot of things that suck, right? Like the Jones Act, like the tax code.
Well, let's go talk about the Jones Act for a sec, right? Many people don't realize this. In one of the provisions of the Jones Act, Guam does have a waiver.
Okay.
We do. However, a big chunk of our goods that come in from the mainland actually go through Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
So the issue with the Jones Act is not necessarily should Guam get an exemption. It's really, should Hawaii get an exemption? And the problem that you're going to have when you start going back to that discussion is, and we've explored every option of it. The Jones Act itself it's an archaic law. It's been around for nearly a century.
Yeah, educate us on the place, right?
The problem you have over here is goods that go through Hawaii. You have a very strong 3 out of 4 members of the Hawaii delegation in Congress. 3 out of 4 are pro-Jones Act members. 2 from the Senate and 1 from the House.
Mm-hmm.
So until Hawaii actually gets a full exemption, Guam is not going to benefit from the exemption that we have.
Okay.
Because once again, the goods don't come here directly. They go through a U.S. port to Hawaii and then to here.
And that's what the Jones Act is. You have to run through Hawaii.
You have,
or
technically a U.S. port.
But Hawaii is.
But because we don't have enough goods to load up a ship, what happens is it gets, from San Francisco, for example, the port of San Francisco into Hawaii, goods are offloaded, and then we get what we get. So until Hawaii gets that exemption, we don't benefit fully from it. But a lot of our goods do come in from Asia. They're exempt from.
Okay.
Yeah, because you can't. I mean, those are possibilities. The biggest problem we have is the goods that have to go from an Asian country, foreign vessels have to go from a U.S. port to a U.S. port.
That's the nuance. That's the nuance for the Jones Act.
And until we get...
We need the waiver there, right?
We would need the waiver. Hawaii would need the waiver. But you also have to remember, this is a well-protected measure, protected by the shipbuilding industry, the unions, the lobbyists. I mean, it's just you're challenging an army, and that's the big issue that we have now. We found citations of in the past where exemptions were utilized. I mean, the Department of Defense can come in, and the Secretary of Defense can actually deem a need for an exemption, and that's something that we had ventured out in the last term. We had numerous letters. I mean, I'm not saying that we were getting much traction. It's not an overnight. It's not an overnight. What do you call that? Decision that's going to be made. It's going to be blocked. You say the word Jones Act, boom, the eyes are on you.
But why wouldn't you just let that happen for goods that were just going to be sold here?
It's really the industry itself. It's a shipbuilding industry that is going to continue to block the ability of allowing foreign vessels to constantly.
But it's a spec. We're really just like a spec. Like in the scheme of things, like GDP and Elon Musk and Flickers.
Yeah, no, and those are the things that you take to the table, right? Those are the types of arguments you take to the table. Yeah. Earlier you asked me about the one thing with Congress and what is that one piece of advice that I would give. It's educate about Guam. Mm-hmm. It's educate. Bring as many Codels to Guam as you can.
Well, they didn't come here.
Sure. This year it's been very dry. I believe the last one we had, 2 this year, 2 full-on Codels. We get a lot of staff Dels, but that's but they basically are focused on inside the fence, right? And that's the problem, is we need to start getting them outside the fence. The last term we were breaking out Codel. We had Codels here routinely at least once every 2 months. Whether it was just 2 members or we had, in fact, the largest group that we had was like 12 members. It's an educational process.
Who's our Charlie Wilson in Congress? He's the advocate for Afghanistan and he had all the fundraisers.
We actually did. There's I'm going to call him Judge Carter. Okay. Judge Carter, John Carter from Texas something. Elder gentleman, came out here, very strong. He's a very strong advocate for Bob. In fact, his chief staff, Jonas, once again, another buddy, right? He used to tease me that if Jim decides not to run for re-election, that John Carter would love to run to represent Guam because of the fact that he just has. Yeah, he was just one of those that hey, Jonas, we like, okay, what is it this time, right?
Sure.
A lot of the wins that we were getting in the NDA. So the NDA is just like a regular staple, the National Defense Authorization Act.
Right.
It's an authorization measure. It's your opportunity to get wins. There's the staple stuff that is going to be built in because Indo-PACOM and JRM and Joint Task Force Micronesia, they're going to put their stuff in and it's automatic.
Right.
And you're going to get a call or an email from the staff director of the Armed Services Committee, which we sat in last term and continued this year. Because you're on the committee, the courtesy would be, hey, by the way, just to let you know, this, and this are all going to be added to the NDA. They're all Guam-centric issues.
Right.
But having advocates like a John Carter or someone like that, you can now start pushing for things on site. You can start saying, hey, listen, let's talk about our electric grid, our power grid, right? Mm-hmm. Let's talk about undergrounding the systems. In fact, last term we were able to get the Defense Access Road Program back in motion again. So the DAR basically are your 2 exterior roads, piece of the highway from the Port Authority up to Naval Base that cuts in, of course, to Camp Laws, and of course from the port down south to Naval Base.
Supplies back and forth, right?
Yeah, so those are your 2 exterior lanes. And under the DAR, what happens is you will get the funding to construct those, which every driver on Guam benefits out of. Mm-hmm. This is a typical case of leveraging it.
Sure.
So we had the authorization at $100 million. But here's the beauty of it. By having these relationships, you're also working with NAFAC and you're working with JRM, and suddenly you're able to say, hey, listen, in your 1091s, which is your work order, what more can we do? And suddenly they'll come back and they'll say, hey, listen, these are the lanes that not just Ryan drives on or Bobby drives on, but our service members drive on.
Yeah.
So everyone wins at these things. So they actually put undergrounding as part of the process. They're undergrounding power lines. They're undergrounding our communication lines, sewage lines. They're redoing all of that. So that's federal government helping the people of Guam.
You know what's interesting? You think they would ask us to put a reactor here?
That conversation began.
Has it?
It's the earliest. So they're currently doing some tests in Idaho or Iowa. I forgot which particular state. One of those Midwest states. And we met with the folks. They came out here. They showed us what it looks like. It's really
size of a trash can.
No, it actually is. The little beads are just
That's great.
Yeah, like marbles, right?
Right.
But that is a conversation that could happen.
I can't imagine how it wouldn't, Bobby.
It's the direction that it's going.
No, but if you think about the defense apparatus and the power that's needed it's all drone warfare, right? So you need all this compute, right?
Well, absolutely, yeah.
And so how are you going to power the compute? Well, we don't have reliable power here at all.
Yeah,
right?
There were conversations on that. At this point,
I've heard as far back as 2011, right?
Yeah, but they were talking about the conversations were if this was to happen on Guam, we're looking at least a decade.
You think?
Because the technology is still being...
They just back up a submarine and plug it in? power barge.
We thought that was going to happen at one point, but
I thought it was like a generator.
there were conversations on that at one point, right? But no, I don't know, that wasn't going to happen. But going back to that, there are ways that you can, and that you have to have your allies, you have to have your friends, and one of the issues I also wanted to talk to you about when we were at the chamber was a classic one, right? It was the housing issue with service members,
right?
And what we were able to do was I worked with a couple of offices in terms of getting language in the act that would allow the military to start, they're doing it now, start looking at derelict structures, start looking at hotels, start looking at large apartment buildings that the military can enter into some kind of a public-private partnership on.
Sure.
So that, the problem over here is, they're looking at things on a horizontal basis. We don't have that much land. It's going to be a challenge. But we do have the ability to go on a on a lateral basis, right? And to start looking and saying, okay, why can't a PAC star, for example? This is a conversation from 2023, 2024.
Right.
We're able to get the language in the 2024 Act, which allows that public-private partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And we're starting to see the fruits of that labor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they are actually, and this is going to be a win-win for the people of Guam, because all the concerns about the military housing. We have hotels that are not being utilized.
Mm-hmm.
That is a partnership that can enter and house, X hundred number of service members. There are conversations, I believe, that are going on for Leo Palace as a possibility for families, right?
Mm-hmm.
Families, the officers and the families that come out here. So,
are you breaking news?
No, I'm just hearing these stories.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just hearing these stories. Right? I mean, I'm not sure who's involved in what, but I do hear the stories. I have
heard
that Santa Fe is going to be utilized for the folks coming out here for the missile defense, the service members for the missile defense. But the good thing is, the positive thing here is, we had to look outside the box and saying, okay, well, we can't be one. It's not like the military was funding to build that many homes for service members.
Yeah.
In fact, I believe in last year, in 2024, there was something like 100-some homes, right? And that's all inside the fence. That's not going to cut it.
Not at all. Yeah, we knew way more. Yeah, 1,400.
And so you have to start looking at large structures. The other thing too was we were able to, in fact, Seth Moulton was running for governor of the state.
Okay.
We became a buddy of mine. He actually calls me up one day and he says, I want to talk about, he was a big stickler for the permitting issue. Because that became a big conversation on the committee about permitting
and stuff.
Yeah. So the conversation him and I had was that let's look at a structure where we can establish an MOU between Guam EPA and federal EPA.
Mm-hmm.
So EPA in general in Guam, they're struggling with having adequate number of inspectors to do their job, so permitting can be expedited.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're looking at they're challenged with what's going on inside the fence, as well as Ryan's building his new structure out here, right? So the agreement was, let's look into this MOU structure where you could utilize U.S. EPA to at least focus on what goes inside the fence, ensuring that all federal laws are complied with, local and federal laws are complied with, and they are. They're sticklers for following the law, to ease up the resources for Guam EPA.
Right.
And then they can start focusing on Ryan's convention center that he's building out here, or his convenience store.
I believe in the convention center. Come on.
And stuff like that. Right? So that's kind of really where I'm not sure where that went, because I had left already. And but those are the types of things that you have to look at, and you have to use the committee for your leverage.
I know you got to go, Bobby, right? So one of the things would be great is, like, give me a path forward, right? Mm-hmm. So, okay, I did the thing. I said I want to be free. I want more, right? Like, this contract is a raw deal. We've gotten the plebiscite, and now we've said we want to be like something more than what we are, right? Whatever that is, right? State, Commonwealth, territory, right? What does that change? And, like, what do we do from there?
In terms of?
What does that change? Okay, so what is the conversation that we then start having? What are the downstream effects? Okay, now, so let's say for me, it's like, okay, I want more money and services and programs, right? As part of my deal for being a part of this, right? So give me the SSI, right? For sure. give me better tax programs, right? So the main thing like I wanted to get drilled down is like, what are we doing now that we should change now that we have the political will to do it? Like from like the VAT, from like Section 30, from the way we like book our money. Give me the path forward, like structurally, that's going to make a meaningful difference. Now that we've made this self-determination vote, and now we're kind of charting our own destiny. What do we ask for that you think we can get that you think will make a meaningful difference?
Well, I think you start focusing on the low-hanging fruit. SSI is a very low-hanging fruit. With education and partnerships and working with the right folks in Congress, understanding that you can start pushing for these issues. It's not going to happen overnight. None of this is going to happen overnight. If you don't start the education process, if you don't start the, hey, come on and visit come and visit my district, let me show you the place, let me show you how this works and this works, you're not going to get anywhere. Yeah, and JRM does a great job in terms of selling what is needed on the inside, right? They do a great job. Juan Carlos Benitez, good friend of mine, hopefully going to be the next, I think he's running for chairman of the Guam Chamber of Commerce. But anyways, guys like him, they bring folks out here. They take care of these staff deals. They educate them. We got to do more of that.
Okay.
Yeah, and we need to see more of that activity. We need to see more of those invitations because until they actually see what happens, nothing really moves.
Right.
And I think in terms of how do we get there, it's once again, there's no one silver bullet answer to that question. There's multiple things you would have to do. I mean, if Guam was to have a plebiscite tomorrow, if Guam was to vote on what the future of Guam's political status would be, right? Whatever that is, right? Whether it's independent, statehood, or I would begin my conversations with the relevant committees in Congress and start asking for an oversight. Start beginning these discussions, right? Start having these roundtable discussions. It's going to take time. Puerto Rico, they're going on more than a decade of these discussions since they overwhelmingly sought off in statehood as their option. And even at that, you still have members of Congress that are going to say, do we really want a 51st state?
Sure.
Do we want to break the balance in the Senate, right?
We got a good thing going here. Right?
Yeah, we have a really good thing going here. And then the politics takes place, right? Are they truly a red state or a blue state? One side or the other is going to look at that and say, does this benefit us? How many seats are you going to get additionally in Congress that are going to be, because there's the size, the population equates to more than just one member of Congress. Is it going to be blue? Is it going to be red? Those are things that they're going to look at. So there's a multiple effects. I mean, Guam automatically is going to be looked as a blue territory. Sure. In the eyes of the federal government. We tend to be, and not just Guam, but just about every territory, except for maybe American Samoa, tends to be more reliant on federal dollars. So you would tend to be more blue than red, and that would be a concern. Statehood would be a concern. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying that in the current environment, it probably wouldn't. And the current environment is a big one too. Under the current environment, you will have challenges on a number of things. I'll give you a good example. The Philippine visa waiver. There was a good, in late 2023, it was November of 2023. I remember getting the letter from the Department of Homeland Security that a tentative approval was being issued for Guam, for the Philippines. However, what was required was the Philippine government had to submit a plan.
Right.
Philippines obviously has the second largest overstay problem in the nation. And that was their concern. Even though you remind these folks that it's a visa waiver program for Guam and the CNMI, meaning you to leave here, you come here, you stay here. We have a very low, in fact, it's a 0% overstay problem in the last decade or decade and a half or something, that to get to Hawaii, you have to have a passport in your hand to get to Hawaii, because you're not going to leave Guam. And you can't go through you can't get to Hawaii without seeing CBP here.
Right.
So how is that going to be
a problem? Zero problem. It's a non-issue.
Yeah. In fact, if they fly to Saipan,
right,
to fly here, they would also have to go through CBP, right?
There's no way out without a passport.
So that was the question. That was the part. It's like, okay, cut these excuses.
Right.
There's almost no realistic path for an individual from the Philippines that's going to come to Guam unless they're getting married over here, and even at that, you're not getting your passport immediately. You got to go through the same CBP, which is under the same umbrella of the Department of Homeland Security.
But it's one of those things where it's easier to say no than common sense.
Correct. But the problem was the Philippine government wasn't, because the bigger issue here, from my belief rather, was that it was really about the Philippine government expecting the Philippine government to clean up the overstay process.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Like,
and I think that was really where the hesitance was that.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, you're so special. I gotta clean up the mess that these people make when they come over to your place. Yeah, come on, man. Yeah, no, I get it.
But the offshoot to that also was the fact that the Philippine government, the Philippines itself, one of their largest, scales of economy, really the folks that are coming out here, right? Is the dollars that go back to the country.
We want you to stay and work.
Yeah.
Overstay all you want.
Yeah.
Well, Bobby, I really appreciate the insight that you brought to the table, and just I learned a lot. And it's clear to me that I have to keep having conversations with you because I'm still interested.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In learning more about like tax code and Section 30, and just like how what dollars we're eligible for that we're kind of like missing out on, right? So I would look forward to continuing the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just got that my 3:15 is waiting for me.
Right on.
So now I'm leaving here. But yeah, be happy to come back again. This was fun, and I still have a lot of things to talk about.
I know.
Yeah, we can definitely continue this. You just tell me when's a good time.
Right on, Bobby.
Yeah,
thanks.
You got it. Anytime.
All right. So we just finished with Bobby, and really, I'm not done. He had to go. We were bracketed like with an hour, but really just I have so many questions about tax code, Section 30, about SSI, why we are here in the situation that we are, why we haven't been able to get to the Jones Act. There's just so many questions that we need to know to decide where we're going to go and how we're going to make things better. And we appreciate you being a part of the conversation, helping continue the discussion and supporting us by liking, sharing, subscribing, and listening to all our content on any of the platforms that you love. Look forward to seeing you out there and looking forward to hearing more of your questions that you want answered. Thanks for joining us on Data Points.